So, Grant, why is Grant Marie wine so incredibly flavorful?
Um, Attention to detail starts with everything starts with the grapes. Good rich soils, organically grown, get the ground alive. Uh, I do soil samples every year, every other year. Uh, with nature, it's the boss, so you do things at their right time. A big deal is trying to get good light exposure, clean the vines up and get good light exposure early so you get the right sunlight but without getting burnt.
How do you get the exposure?
Um, Suckering and then canopy management, taking off laterals, opening up some of the leaves so they get diffuse light uh, rather than direct light because we get really warm days. Um, I haven't been. We've These vines are all 40 or more years old, so I don't water. The only time I have watered in the last 5 or 6 years is when we had 25 inches of rain by Christmas and we had 32 by May.
What's the issue with overwatering?
This makes things fat, big ground. You get bigger grapes. If you want a big crop, you water like crazy. If you want density, some concentration of fruit, you don't overcrop, you don't overwater, and you can see if you have a water problem. Usually, when it's hot in the summer, you're thirsty. You think they are, but if you look at the end of the vines, the tendrils, if they're out, they're not. Have no problems. And these vines being 40 years old, and when we started, we ripped with a 5-foot ripper in late summers, and we used an auger. So the whole idea was to make the vine the least line of resistance down. So we have good root systems, and seldom do they really suffer. In earlier years, we watered more. Now occasionally I'll water in August. I'll give them one 10-hour watering if I feel like it may need it, but mostly I don't.
How about the terroir itself? Is this good grape growing land, and for what varieties?
Well, I think you can grow a lot of good things here, if you do all the right things. I mean, that's not what people think, but right now I have 6 wines that have gotten 90-plus points in the San Francisco Chronicle tasting state fair. Cabs always do well, Port does well, Syrah does well, Grenache does well, Zinfandel does well, Sangiu, all the reds do well, except
And the
for
whites?
Pinot. I'd say Pinot was a little bit out of sync, but
And the whites?
whites are good. They're good.
What are you growing now?
In whites,
Uh-huh.
we have Simeon, which I think there's only about 500 acres of that in California, versus Chardonnay, which we have. It has 93,000 acres. And we have Sauvignon Blanc. We make a blend of Simeon and Sauvignon Blanc, kind of copied after what happens in the Groves in Bordeaux, where I met that in a winemaker's kitchen.
One last question, Grant. What about harvest? Is there anything in particular that you pay attention to at harvest time?
Well, you take samples and samples and samples. I want grapes that are not over the top, like the last 10, or my idea of over the top, where you're getting, the high 14s to 17 alcohol. I want grapes that are ripe. They're soft to the touch, but they're in the varietal characteristic and haven't gone to not prune juice, but
Like that plummy flavor?
They hold the characteristic of the varietal, and they don't get kind of too ripe,
Right.
or my idea of too ripe.
Which is very common in California, in my taste.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I can't come up with the word right now, but it's, you go past not prunes. Between prunes and varietal character, there's a. So anyway, I'm looking for that. I'm trying to have, and a lot of times we pick twice because things don't ripen up all at the same time, and you get those greeny flavors. So I'm out tasting grapes every day through the whole season because I don't want the green flavors, and I don't want it overripe. I don't want raisins. So when we pick, the thing is no pink, no green, and no raisins. We selectively pick, and we usually pick at least twice. And like a place like Zinfandel, it's always 3 times because they're not even.
I think that's great.
And that's major.
That's what?
I said being able to have like a small vineyard, you have like when we were picking 40 tons of fruity a day. There's no such thing as picking selectively.
How about medals, Grant? Do people recognize your wines?
Well, I put wines in the San Francisco Chronicle tasting in the State Fair, and last year they didn't have a State Fair, but I have 6 wines that got 90+ points in the San Francisco Chronicle tasting and State Fair.
Which is super high.
Yeah, well, 90s, that was kind of a low A in your in grade school, so it's a good sign. So the port, which is made out of 5 different types of Portuguese grapes, and Syrah, for the last 15 years, since we started putting them in about 2004, they've gotten 90 or more points every year. Cabernets, the same. Every year we've gotten
Gold medals.
silver to gold every year. Syrah, the same. Grenache and Grenache Syrah, in the State Fair, I usually put them in, and they get around 90 every year. Zinfandel's gotten in the 90s every year to put it in. So pretty much everything we grow. And I don't put whites in because we only grow about 15 or 20% of our crops are whites.
And they quickly sell out.